This week on Africa Weekly, we go to Kenya, where child brides are being urged to go back to school. We visit Nigeria to see how the recession is affecting everyday life. And to South Africa, where women are skating their way towards female empowerment. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. Free at last. 21 kidnapped Chibok girls were released by Boko Haram on Thursday after more than 2 years in captivity, following negotiations between the jihadist group and the Nigerian government. The deal was mediated by Switzerland and the Red Cross. Nigerian Vice President Yemi Osinbajo said their release was very good news for the entire country. More than 270 girls were taken from their school in the northeast of the country in 2014. Some 197 girls remain in captivity. Burundi's parliament overwhelmingly voted to leave the International Criminal Court, taking the nation a step closer to being the first ever to quit the tribunal. 94 of Burundi's 110 lawmakers approved the plan, 14 abstained and 2 voted against before the Senate passed the law unanimously. It now awaits President Pierre Nkurunziza's approval. The move is a snub to the international community by the Central African nation, which has been mired in 18 months of violent political crisis. German Chancellor Angela Merkel met with the Ethiopian Prime Minister in Addis Ababa. It's the final leg of her 3-nation Africa tour aimed at fighting terrorism and stemming the migrant influx to Europe. The Prime Minister said his government wants to reform the country's electoral system, which has excluded the opposition and prompted months of bloody protests. Merkel called for open talks with the opposition and offered police training. The African nation declared a 6-month state of emergency last week. The Moroccan Islamist Justice and Development Party beat its liberal rivals, the Authenticity and Modernity Party, in parliamentary elections. King Mohammed VI reappointed PJD chief Abdullah Ben-Kirane as PM following the party's victory. It now holds 125 out of 395 seats in parliament. Tempers flare as student protesters continue to clash with police in South Africa. Demonstrators at the Vaal University of Technology, south of Johannesburg, were met with water cannons and rubber bullets. Weeks of protests at South African universities have targeted tuition fees. Students say they are also about racism and inequality in a society still plagued by the legacy of apartheid. Medical delivery drones are taking flight over Rwanda. After being catapulted into the air, the small fixed-wing machines buzz towards hospitals several kilometres away. Backers of the drone delivery operation hope it will kickstart a revolution in the supply of medical care in rural parts of Africa. Families living near the Somali border in Kenya are being encouraged to send their daughters to school, in an initiative backed by Save the Children and the Kenyan government. More than 4 in 10 women are married before the legal age of 18 in this region, twice the national average, and 4 out of 5 are illiterate.
Born into a nomadic family, Halima was circumcised as a young child. At just 13 years old, she was married to a man twice her age. It's a familiar story for girls brought up in this arid region of northeast Kenya, where 4 out of 5 women are illiterate.
I'd never been to school before. We were kept hidden away, and I used to look after the livestock.
Most people who live near the Somali border, in and around Wajir, are of Somali origin. It's a dangerous region targeted by Islamist extremists. Nearly half of the girls here are married before the age of 18. Last year, Save the Children helped the government launch a new program to get girls into school, an initiative that faced resistance among this religious nomadic population.
It was hard for me to accept putting my daughter in school. As nomads, we would move from village to village, moving all the time. But over time, and once we settled here, I agreed to have her enrolled.
The NGO offers families €26 per term in return for sending their daughters back to school. Halima's husband agreed to let his wife study in the hope that she'd get a job later.
We don't have children yet, so it's not a problem. The reason I agreed to allow my wife to go back to school was for her to be educated, but mostly to allow her to find work.
Already an inspiration to her classmates, Halima hopes to become a school teacher, to earn a living for her family and educate other girls in her community.
Cranes stand idle in Nigeria's commercial capital. The construction industry in Lagos has ground to a halt. With the devaluation of the naira currency and inflation soaring, firms simply can't afford to import the building materials they need.
Your project is going to take 3 years, and in 9 months in the 3 years, there's been a major change in the rates. And a whole lot of construction materials in Nigeria are imported. So you've faced the challenges of your costs going so much higher.
Nigeria officially plunged into recession in August, hit by the fall in global oil prices. Militant attacks on oil pipelines in the Niger Delta worsened the crisis. The effects are being felt throughout the economy, with both market traders and shoppers struggling to make ends meet.
It's expensive, it's not what we expected. And for example, now we buy material at the range of 500 before, now it's now 800, it's now 1,000 naira.
The money is not there, and when you try to hike the price, your customer keep complaining. But what can we do? We have to be in business. You have to sell the way you buy. You have to increase the price gradually in order to maintain your customers.
There's good news for Nigerians this week with the release of 21 Chibok schoolgirls kidnapped by Boko Haram. President Buhari will be hoping for an economic miracle too as he visits Germany to attract much-needed foreign investments.
Gutterfly, Betty Bone Crusher, Fatality. This is what female empowerment sounds like in South Africa. At least to this group of roller skating women smashing into each other on a Wednesday night, where the sport of roller derby brings out their inner superwoman.
Every empowered superhero has a pseudonym. Everybody, there's something amazing about roller derby, and that is that it allows you to be whoever you want to be. So you can be this goody librarian, and you can be this murderous person on the track, and it just allows you to be that super amazing, strong, everything you wish you can be on the track.
The sport has only been in South Africa for about 4 years, but it already has leagues in several big cities. The largest, in Johannesburg, boasts about 60 players and has 3 teams. League coach Amy Plank, known as the Iron Tyrant on the track, says roller derby attracted her because it celebrates women in all their forms.
For me, a lot of it comes from a body size perspective. I'm not the smallest person, but I can, and when I started sports, like I was just kind of like the defense, I'd stand in the back. Whereas this, I can be fast, I can be powerful, I can block people out the way. It celebrates my size, and that makes me feel powerful. It makes me feel like I can do anything on skates, I can be anything. I can see other skaters that inspire me and be like, I can do that, I just have to work for it.
Female athletes are frequently body shamed in a way their male counterparts don't experience. The roller derby community strives to protect women from that.
Roller derby is all about women being happy in their body and women being accepted for who they are and what they are.
The C-Max rollers will be competing in South Africa's first national tournament come November, which they hope will expose a wider audience to the sport and attract more diverse players.
A competition that's bound to get your heart racing. The 9th El Jadira horse show in Morocco showcased a spectacular cavalry charge, part of the King Mohammed VI to Bourida Grand Prix. The race comes from an old warrior tradition, finishing off with synchronized musket firing. Next week, we catch some waves in Nigeria, where one passionate surfer is teaching kids how to master the ocean. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.